You're walking through the park on a quiet afternoon. The sky is a soft blue. Your dog trots happily by your side, and everything feels like a peaceful moment. Until it happens. Another dog appears. Ears perk up, tails wag, and without warning, they go straight for each other's backsides. Not a polite sniff of the nose, not a gentle tail wag, but a deep, focused investigation of each other's butts, like two scientists uncovering ancient fossils. For most humans, it's uncomfortable to watch, maybe even a little gross. But for your dog, that sniff is everything. It's not random. It's not weird. It's communication in its purest, most honest form. Welcome to a secret world, invisible to us, but rich and overflowing with meaning for our dogs. A world where every rear end carries a message, every scent is a sentence, and every sniff is a conversation. If this sounds bizarre, it's because we're trying to understand it from a human point of view. But the truth is, your dog doesn't care about human politeness. They're following a system that evolution designed millions of years ago, one that's so effective, so accurate, that dogs can read each other like an open book simply by inhaling near the tail. And here's where things get shocking. What your dog learns from that quick sniff is more detailed than any Tinder bio, more honest than any first date, and more reliable than any handshake. That sniff reveals gender, age, emotional state, reproductive status, health conditions, diet, stress levels, and even the social hierarchy of the other dog. It's not just curiosity, it's information gathering, it's identity verification, it's emotional radar. And for your dog, it's not weird at all, it's necessary. You see, dogs have an extraordinary organ that humans don't, the Jacobson's organ, also known as the vomeronasal organ. Located just above the roof of their mouth, this structure allows dogs to detect pheromones, those powerful chemical signals that communicate everything from fear to desire to dominance. It works hand in hand with their nose, which already has up to 300 million olfactory receptors, compared to our measly 6 million. That's why your dog doesn't just smell the other dogs behind, they analyze it, they decode it, they feel it. So next time your pup plunges nose first into another dog's business, don't feel embarrassed, feel amazed. Because in that moment, they're tapping into a biological internet, downloading emotional data that helps them understand the world around them better than we ever could with just our eyes or ears. In today's episode of Mundo Animal, we pull back the curtain on this strange and wonderful ritual. We're going deep, literally, into the science, the psychology, and the emotional intelligence behind butt sniffing. What is your dog really doing when they do this? What are they learning? And what does it say about how dogs see the world and how they see you? If you've ever laughed at this behavior or felt embarrassed in front of other people when it happens, this video will completely change your perspective. Because once you understand what's really going on, you'll see that sniff not as something strange, but as something truly genius. To truly grasp the depth of this behavior, we need to start with the dog's nose, an organ so powerful and refined that it can detect a single drop of blood in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. Dogs experience the world first and foremost through smell. Where we rely on sight, they rely on scent. Every gust of wind carries messages. Every tree, every patch of grass, every trace of another animal leaves behind a story. But of all the scent sources, the anal glands are the most information-rich. Anal glands, located just inside a dog's rectum, produce a unique chemical cocktail. These secretions are like personal identification cards, completely unique to each dog. Think of them as scent-based fingerprints, but even more detailed. When a dog sniffs another's behind, they're not just registering this is a dog. They're registering this dog right now in this emotional state with this specific hormonal signature. It's instant profiling, but not in a malicious way, in a biologically programmed one. Here's where the science gets fascinating. These chemical messages, pheromones, are interpreted by that incredible vomeronasal organ we mentioned. It bypasses the brain's thinking center and goes straight to the emotional core. That's right. Your dog doesn't think about what they're smelling, they feel it. It's an emotional download. The information skips logic and goes directly to the limbic system, which controls emotion, behavior, and social bonding. This is why the act of sniffing another dog's butt is often followed by immediate behavioral changes, playfulness, caution, even submission or excitement. Now imagine what this means in a real-world scenario. A dog enters a dog park. It doesn't know who's friendly, who's dominant, or who might be nervous or aggressive. But a single sniff can reveal everything. Who's ready to play? Who's anxious? Who's territorial? It's how dogs avoid fights, build relationships, and maintain peace in the pack. It's conflict resolution through chemistry. But the story doesn't end there. Butt sniffing also plays a vital role in social memory. Dogs remember each other not by appearance but by scent. That one sniff can create a long-lasting olfactory memory. So the next time they meet, even if it's been weeks or months, your dog may instantly recall that scent and everything associated with it. The mood, the context, even the setting of their last interaction. Smell becomes a time machine, a connection to the past, a foundation for future interaction. And there's an emotional layer too, one we often overlook. For many dogs, butt sniffing isn't just about gathering data. It's about reconnecting, like two friends catching up after a long time apart. It's not uncommon for dogs to approach each other cautiously, then visibly relax after the first sniff, as if saying, "Oh, it's you, I remember now." It's a moment of recognition, of emotional validation, of trust. This is why you should never pull your dog away too quickly when they're greeting another dog, unless it becomes clearly unwanted or aggressive. Interrupting that process is like hanging up the phone in the middle of a conversation. You're cutting off their chance to understand, to connect, to evaluate the situation. In that brief exchange of molecules, your dog might be deciding whether this encounter leads to play or tension. Let them finish the call. And yes, there's even a psychological aspect to all of this. Dogs that don't get to sniff or be sniffed can become socially anxious or reactive. It's like living in a world where you can't ask questions or introduce yourself. It creates confusion, frustration, even fear. Sniffing is social currency. Without it, dogs feel blind and vulnerable. So the next time someone chuckles when dogs engage in this behavior, remember what's really happening. This isn't silly or gross. It's neuroscience. It's evolutionary biology. It's emotional intelligence, expressed through the nose. Now let's go even deeper. Because as strange as it sounds, the act of butt sniffing may reveal more about the emotional lives of dogs than almost any other behavior. For starters, it's not just about recognizing other dogs, it's also about recognizing themselves in relation to others. That sniff creates a moment of self-positioning in a complex social map. It's your dog asking, "Who are you? And where do I stand with you?" In a world without words, that question and the answer comes through scent. Let's say your dog meets a larger dog with a confident gait. They both go in for the sniff. If the larger dog stands tall and lets the sniff happen, but doesn't return it immediately, your dog may perceive a dominant personality. But if the larger dog eagerly sniffs back, offers loose body language, and shows signs of playfulness, your dog's response might shift. Suddenly, what began as a formal greeting turns into an invitation for fun. This transformation happens within seconds, all based on invisible chemical signals and subtle postures. That's social intelligence in its purest form. And here's something even more fascinating. The sniffing ritual is not always symmetrical. In dog psychology, it's common for one dog to do most of the sniffing while the other simply stands. This isn't rudeness, it's hierarchy. The sniffer is often the one asking questions, the stander, the one giving permission. But just as quickly, the roles can reverse. One moment your dog is the interrogator, the next, the interviewee. This constant shifting reflects the fluid nature of dog social structure. Unlike humans, dogs don't fix roles forever. They negotiate them, moment by moment, nose to tail. This behavior also reveals emotional depth. For example, a nervous or insecure dog might avoid butt sniffing altogether. Instead, they may bark, pull away, or redirect their energy elsewhere. But that's not aggression. It's emotional avoidance. They're overwhelmed by the intensity of the moment, unsure of how to interpret the scent signals, or afraid of what they might reveal. In these cases, patient socialization, not punishment, is key. Helping your dog gradually feel safe enough to sniff or be sniffed can improve their confidence and reduce anxiety in social settings. Butt sniffing can even act as emotional healing. In some therapy environments, dogs are introduced to other calm, balanced dogs to help them relearn social cues through scent. It's a kind of emotional reprogramming, allowing them to process trauma or stress in a natural, nonverbal way. The healing comes not through commands, but through chemistry. Through a simple but profound exchange of molecules that says, "You're safe. I see you. I smell you. You matter." And let's not forget the role of memory and emotional attachment. Studies have shown that dogs can recognize the scent of their favorite humans or canine friends even after long periods apart. And when they do, the part of the brain associated with pleasure and reward lights up, just like when we see a loved one after a long time. In fact, some scientists believe that sniffing the scent of someone they love may actually release oxytocin, the bonding hormone, in dogs. In other words, sniffing can be an act of love. So that tail-wagging, nose-bearing, slightly awkward moment in the dog park? It might be your dog saying, "I missed you," or "I remember you," or even "I feel safe with you." It's not weird. It's wonderfully emotional. It's profoundly instinctive. And it's one of the clearest signs that dogs experience relationships not just physically, but emotionally and psychologically too. Butt sniffing isn't just a behavior. It's a language, a ritual, a reflection of how dogs think, feel, remember, and connect. And once we start seeing it that way, we begin to understand our dogs not as silly or primitive, but as deeply sensitive beings, guided by a sense of smell that reveals emotional worlds we can barely comprehend. Let's take a moment to explore what happens when this behavior is misunderstood by humans. Too often, people yank their dog's leash away mid-sniff, worried about awkwardness or assuming it's inappropriate. But that interruption can be deeply confusing for a dog. Imagine being in the middle of an important introduction, only to be pulled away mid-sentence, mid-thought, mid-emotion. That's exactly what it feels like to them. It's not just rude, it's disorienting. Over time, dogs who are repeatedly prevented from sniffing may develop social frustration. They can become less tolerant of other dogs, more reactive, and even anxious during walks. Why? Because they're not allowed to gather the information they need to feel safe. You've taken away their most essential tool for understanding the world. And without that, everything becomes unpredictable. Imagine walking blindfolded through a party where everyone is speaking a language you don't understand. That's what life feels like for a dog denied the right to sniff. Now consider this. Some dogs take longer to sniff than others. Just like some people are quick to size up a room, while others need time to observe and process. The same is true for dogs. Quick sniffs may suggest confidence or familiarity, while extended sniffing often signals caution or curiosity. And each variation offers valuable insight into your dog's personality. Are they assertive, shy, empathic, observant? All of this is revealed, not by barking or playing, but by scent and time. Interestingly, this behavior also plays a role in mate selection. Female dogs in heat will emit powerful pheromones that signal their reproductive status. Male dogs can detect these from great distances and will often become hyper-focused, not out of disrespect, but because their biological systems are demanding attention. This can make greetings more intense, and owners should be aware of the hormonal dynamics at play. In these situations, sniffing isn't just communication, it's nature in action. But what about dogs who live alone, rarely see other dogs, or grow up in isolated environments? These dogs may struggle with butt sniffing etiquette. Some may become too aggressive, pushing their noses in too quickly and violating another dog's space. Others may freeze up, unsure of what to do. Like humans, dogs need social learning. If they don't get the chance to interact regularly, they won't develop the subtle timing, sensitivity, or restraint required for successful scent-based greetings. This is why dog parks, group walks, and social outings aren't just about exercise. They're about exposure, experience, repetition, learning how to read the room through a tail, a twitch, a posture, a sniff. Dogs need other dogs to be their teachers, to guide them, correct them, and reward them with trust. And when we allow that process to happen naturally, when we step back and give them space, something magical occurs. They remember, they grow, they adapt. And here's where it all comes together. When your dog sniffs another dog's rear end, they're not being gross, they're being brave, vulnerable, honest. They're showing interest, seeking understanding, offering connection. That moment of scent exchange is the closest thing dogs have to an emotional handshake, and it's built entirely on honesty. No lies, no posturing, just raw chemical truth. By understanding this, we as humans can do something truly meaningful. We can respect the invisible. We can honor what we don't smell or see, but know is deeply important. And in doing so, we deepen our relationship with our dogs, not just as caretakers or companions, but as interpreters of a species that speaks with its nose and listens with its heart. So next time your dog goes in for the sniff, let it happen. Watch closely. Observe their body language, their tail position, their breathing. Because in that brief, awkward, beautiful moment, your dog is doing something truly profound. They're speaking their truth. And they're listening to someone else's. What we often label as gross or funny is, in reality, a window into one of the most emotionally intelligent creatures we've ever welcomed into our homes. Your dog isn't sniffing out of boredom or bad manners. They're sniffing because they are wired to connect, to learn, to feel. That nose, wet, twitching, curious, is their bridge to the world. It gathers truth, tests emotion, and reads the room in a way no human ever could. Behind every sniff is a choice, a question, a greeting, a risk. Your dog doesn't have words, but they don't need them. With a single inhale, they can decode a life story. And they trust that what they find will guide them toward a friend, away from a threat, into a moment of play, or simply into understanding. That's what makes this behavior so profound. It reminds us that emotional intelligence doesn't always look like what we expect. It's not a speech or a gesture. It's a breath. It's a pause. It's one dog saying to another, "I see you. I smell you. I understand." So the next time you see your dog dive nose first into another pup's backside, don't be embarrassed. Be amazed. That moment is a ritual older than human civilization. It survived because it works, because it keeps dogs safe, because it brings them closer, because it reveals who they are, not just as animals, but as emotional beings navigating a complex world through scent, instinct, and memory. And now that you know what's really happening during that strange little moment in the park, you'll never look at it the same way again. Because behind that sniff lies a universe of emotion, communication, and intelligence that most people will never stop to see. But you did. You listened, you learned, you chose to look deeper. And your dog? They may not know the words, but they'll feel it. Every time you let them finish the sniff, every time you respect their process, every time you understand what others overlook. Thank you for being that kind of human. And if this opened your eyes to something new about your dog, if you want more truth, more wonder, and more emotional insight into the creatures we share our lives with, subscribe to Mundo Animal, because every animal has a story, and we're here to tell it.